You spend the best days and the best hours of your adult life in an institution that tells you in 1,000 ways, I don't give a shit about you.
Marxian economist Professor Richard Wolff was at Left Forum 2019, where he discussed the issues with capitalism. Now, his talk here was about 20 minutes long, but I'm going to pull 3 different clips out of it to showcase to you just how brilliant Richard Wolff is. He's really able to break down the inherent issues with capitalism and make it digestible to the average person. So let's get to the first clip.
You know that in the private sector, which is where most of us work, the overwhelming majority, the employer produces some good or some service and sells it into the market. And that employer is never, ever going to hire you for $20 an hour unless the following sentence is true. During each hour that you work, you add more to the value of what your employer sells than the $20 he's going to pay you. Or to say it in real simple English, you produce more than you get paid. So if you've said to yourself, or if you heard some proud person say, I will never work for anyone who doesn't pay me what I'm worth, you're talking to a person who doesn't understand how the system works. You were never paid what you were worth, and you cannot and will not be in a capitalist system. Why? Because the difference between what your labor adds to the value that your employer sells and what he pays you is his profit, and it's why he's in business. And if you don't generate that profit for him, he's got no use for you. So for the American people, the vast majority of whom come home every day with a vague sense of having been ripped off at the job, they're exactly right. It's just they haven't had the course yet to be able to understand why they feel that way and why they ought to. The closest we get, and pardon me for those of you who've heard me do this joke before, the closest we get as a culture to recognizing it is that peculiar tradition we have of the name we give for the 2 hours immediately at the end of the workday. The 2 hours that are advertised in that window we pass on the way home from the job, which tells us if we come inside, we can have a happy hour, underscoring how different it is from the previous hours.
All right. So I have 2 more clips to get to. But look, if this is your introduction to Richard Wolff, follow him on Twitter, follow him on YouTube, look up his speeches. The guy's brilliant. I mean, you don't have to be a socialist or a Marxian economist to understand the inherent flaws in capitalism. It's okay to critique the system. I mean, people are it's hilarious, like how Marxists have become such a scary word or scary people. All Marxism is a critique of capitalism. That's all it is. Understanding the inherent flaws in capitalism. That's all being a Marxist is. So understand that. Now, a lot of this to us, look, as he kind of points out there, it's hard to really grasp this because it's normal to us. This is the world that we live in. So until somebody points out how, yeah, where is the profit going? Or why am I not being paid more than I'm being paid? Oh, obviously it's because they have to be able to make money off of me, off of my work. So I'll be paid less than what I produce in terms of labor. Now you may think, well, of course that should happen because the employer, well, they run the business, so they get to run the show, they get to decide. But then couldn't you make that same argument about slavery, about feudalism? Can you just say, well, of course they get to decide because they own you. Of course they get to decide because that's their land. They get to decide what to do with that. I mean, understand here that there is a different path. You can have the workers own the means of production. You can have the workers decide, the workers vote on, democratize the workplace, allow the workers to decide what to do with these profits. But that isn't the current system we live in unless you work for a workers' co-op. So there are workers' co-ops out there where, as I just said, there's democracy in the workplace. So think about it. We have democracy in our lives in a sense because, through politics, but we don't have democracy in the time that we spend most of our lives in the workplace. Why don't we get a say there? So this is what Richard Wolff points out, and he's the best at it, in my opinion. Actually, before I go any farther, I have to give credit to Essential Dissent on YouTube. They're the ones that shot this speech live, so go check out their channel, and you can actually watch the full interview below. I'll link to it below the video. But let me get to the second clip here where he goes on.
And then on top of it, you're caught up in a system in which the employer has every incentive and every interest to squeeze the part that's paid to you, thereby increasing what's left over for him in what you produce. Get more out of you, give less to you. It's endless, isn't it? Get you to do a little task extra. Get you to go quicker to the bathroom. Make sure you come on time and don't leave early. And you get the picture? Always, always. And if there's a machine that can make you more productive or make you unnecessary, oh boy, will it be engaged quickly. Impact on you? Who cares? You spend the best days and the best hours of your adult life in an institution that tells you in 1,000 ways, I don't give a shit about you. In capitalism, of course, you are, as Marx loved to say, free. And here's what the freedom means. You can leave the employer and go find another one, hoping against hope that the other one won't treat you as nastily as the one you just left did. A long shot and a very constricted notion of what freedom means.
Richard Wolff lays it out. Now, I want to go a little bit into the profit motive aspect of all this, because profits that these companies make, these massive companies, they don't benefit the employees of these companies. I mean, you'd think if your labor is producing the company lots and lots of money, lots and lots of profit, shouldn't that benefit you? Doesn't that mean that your labor helped to create that? But that's not what happens. All you have to do is read the headlines every week. I mean, you had GM close 5 plants, laid off 14,000 people. So, I guess that means GM was doing terrible, right? No. GM made $2.5 billion in profit the previous quarter. $2.5 billion in profit in the previous quarter. The next quarter, they close 5 plants, lay off 14,000 people. Where are the benefits going to? The top, obviously, they spent 295 times more than the average GM worker makes on CEO pay alone. $22 million. The CEO makes $22 million, 295 times more than the average GM worker. That's where the money goes. They spent $14 billion on stock buybacks to artificially inflate their own stock, received $3.29 billion in taxpayer-funded bailout money in 2008. This is a company living off of taxpayers. And where does all their money go? To the top of these companies, to the executives. This is not a healthy system. This is a rigged system. It's not even just broken, it's rigged. It's rigged for those that already have wealth and already have power. One more clip here from Richard Wolff.
We're about to celebrate a 4th of July with a Statue of Liberty not far from here, which says we welcome the poor, the hungry, the huddled masses yearning to be free as we slaughter them. This is a society that's spun out of control, whose fakery to itself, it reaches such extremes that it's easy for me to take these 15 minutes and sketch it for you. That tells you how far gone it is. There's only one real issue, in my opinion, for the American people. They finally got to stop pointing fingers somewhere else and figure out that allowing an economic system to exist that behaves this way, that puts as its leader a person whose lack of appropriateness for the job is so grotesquely on display every day, the whole world kind of shakes its head in stunned disbelief. You're supposed to have a veneer. That's why you have Ivy League schools. You learn how to not show that sort of thing. The system requires it, but you have to disguise it. The system is an extremist, and so it actually needs clowns, theater performers, to distract people. Let's get angry at Mr. Trump. What for? When he's gone, there's 20 more like that. There's no shortage. England is about to put into office their Mr. Trump. The Italians already have done it.
So, once again, Richard Wolff allows you to think about issues differently. I mean, we already know that, at least most of you know that watch my channel, know that Trump is a symptom of a problem, not the problem. I mean, Trump came to power because there was already issues going on, but it goes even deeper than that. The issues are rooted in the system. They are rooted in capitalism. So understand here, it's important to have a perspective on how the system operates, on how people are exploited through their labor, how you're not ever paid what you're worth because the system doesn't allow it. The system is based on making money off of your labor at all times. You have no control. You have no democracy in the workplace. I mean, some are better than others, but in terms of how the actual where these profits go, how your labor is treated, you have no real say in that unless, again, you work in a workers' co-op. So that's all this is about, democracy in the workplace. We have democracy, or are supposed to have democracy in our political system, but we don't have democracy where we spend most of our time in the workplace. Have a better understanding of the system and how it's set up to oppress people. So once again, follow Richard Wolff on Twitter, on YouTube. I'll link to this speech below the video. I also want to give thanks to Black Socialists of America. I came across these clips because they shared some of these on Twitter. And the full speech also has a great takedown of Jeff Bezos and his wealth. So check that out.